very excited to present Xsync to you, which was a collaboration between Salesforce Research, where I worked, and Marty Hurst at UC Berkeley. All right, so jumping right in, imagine that you're drafting an email, and like many people out there these days, you might think to get help from ChatGPT as you edit your email. And you might be looking to do things like change to a more formal tone, or help with fixing typos or grammar issues, or you want to add additional detail, etc. Actually, OpenAI doesn't publish much anymore, but in their GPT-3 paper a while back, they showed that rewriting queries actually made up more than 8% of total API calls, which is kind of mind-blowing, more than summarization. So rewriting, very common. And what happens typically is that, the LLM will reply to you, like ChatGPT will reply to you with like a new version of the document, right? And that's great because it's ready to use. You can copy-paste it, but it's kind of, the difficulty is you don't really see what it did, right? It's kind of hard to understand, okay, what were the edits that it produced? And it's kind of going to be hard for you to be like, oh, I really like the first paragraph, but not the third, and how do I like kind of combine this into my own final draft? And some of us here in the room are computer scientists, so maybe you're thinking, oh, like, I know what I can do. I can use maybe a string alignment algorithm like Levenstein to kind of reverse engineer, okay, what did the LLM do, right? And you can see here I kind of did it manually, and you can see, oh, like it capitalized the title, and it switched hey to dear, etc., right? And this makes the suggestions more explicit, which is great, but it also means that this is very hard then to integrate back into your workflow of like, I just want to send this email out, right? However, you can see the LLM is kind of capable of doing a lot of very different kinds of text edits. Okay. Another thing you might be thinking is, oh, but what if I ask for the LLM, this is just a prompt, so I could add to the prompt, do not rewrite the document, instead list out exactly all the editing change you would make to this document, right? And sorry for the small font on the right, but you can see like basically the answer is much longer, and it's like the LLM is providing these like, I would change the subject line to this, etc. And it's nice because it does provide explanations, and it's transparent, but there again, it's like hard to do the integration back into somebody's email. And so what we proposed in Xsync is kind of the better of the three worlds that I just listed in the first slides. So in Xsync, what we're going to do is we're still going to back the text editing interface with an LLM, but we're going to ask the LLM to generate what we call executable edits. So executable edits are in JSON format. You can see them here in the top right. And it's in the standardized language. We're going to ask it, what would you replace with what in JSON format? And then they're like a first-class object in the text editor where you can accept and dismiss edits with one click. Okay, so let me show you what it looks like in practice with a little video. So I want you to put on your thinking hat. You're going to be working at a travel agency called the Xsync Travel Agency. And your job is to write an email to potential customers that are planning to go on vacation. So we're writing this email to this person, Alice, who maybe wants to go to Rome. So the first thing that I do here in the chat component on the bottom right is I say, okay, let's fix typos and make it more professional. Okay? And you can see the LLM generated 5 edits. I accepted a couple of them individually, and then I accepted the last 3 in group. So you might be thinking, hey, Philippe, I already have Grammarly. Like, this seems just like a bit redundant compared to that. But remember, this is backed by an LLM. At the time, it was GPT-4 Turbo. So I can do something like ask, hey, let's mention 2 or 3 monuments in Rome. And it can be like, oh, yeah, like, how about the Colosseum, the St. Peter Basilica, and the Trevi Fountain? And I can accept that. And I can even ask it, hey, let's add emojis to this email. And again, it's an LLM. It can generate these kinds of edits. So this was the global chat. We also have a component called the local comments. So how does local comments work? So local comments start by selecting an area of the text. So for instance, here I selected Rome is quite famous for food. And you'll see what I did is I wrote, it creates a conversation that's localized, and I can say add more detail here. So instead of having to say in the global chat, hey, let's add more details at the end of the 3rd paragraph, I can select something and say, let's add details here. And then I can kind of refine it through conversation, add more details, and then accept or dismiss, and then resolve the comment. So both of these components are reactive, so they only suggest edits if you ask for edits. So we implemented another one that's more proactive called the marker. Let me show you how that works. So the marker, it starts by you defining a marker that you want. So say you want to sound more confident, you can kind of define it with a color and say, okay, identify any part that doesn't sound confident and help me improve it. And then these markers three are set right now. They run in the background as you edit, and they kind of like continuously help you try to improve your professional tone, or here's how you improve your confidence, or the typos that you might leave in. And the difference here compared to the other two components is that it's very much proactive, and you set it once, you forget about it, and it kind of continuously gives you edits. So in this sense, this is a bit of like a personalizable Grammarly, if you think about it. Okay. So let me walk you through what we did for the first study of InkSync. So we recruited participants, just like I just recruited you in this InkSync travel agency. And we gave them emails, like initial email templates, and we told them, okay, hey, you're going to have 6 minutes to edit this email, and you're going to have 2 objectives. One, let's make sure that it sounds professional and doesn't have any typos. That's objective A. And then objective B is let's customize the email to a particular travel destination and a customer persona that we give to the user. Okay. So we had 6 different conditions. Basically, we had 2 baseline interfaces. So one is just like complete manual editing. And the second one is what we call the non-executable chat. Think about having a manual text editor and then ChatGPT in a different window. So you can ask for stuff, but you still have to kind of manually integrate things. It's non-executable. And then we had different ablated versions of the interface, so only the chat, only the markers, only the comments. And then we have one interface with all 4. I didn't talk much about Brainstorm, but basically all the components. We recruited about 100 participants. They each did 3 emails, so we got a total of 300 emails. To give you a sense of it, here's what one session looks like. So in 6 minutes, somebody can edit text, can edit an email a lot. So, edit this email so that, Gloria, who wants to travel to Egypt, and she's traveling with 2 children, you can see there's a lot of fun edits that were integrated with all the different components. Okay. So looking kind of at the results very briefly, what we found is something interesting. That if you remember objective A, objective B, what we found is that for objective A, things like changing the tone of an email or removing typos, a marker-like interaction is better. So people set a marker at the start, and then they kind of, they don't have to go to the chat and be like, is there typos now? What about now? Is there typos, right? It's kind of continuously running. On the other hand, for things like objective B, where you're trying to personalize or you're trying to get new ideas, a chat-like interaction is better. And then, of course, the interface that has both tends to do both on both objectives. So that was pretty cool. Another thing we studied is, okay, how efficient are people at editing? So our participants, they all start from a common draft, and then how fast do they diverge? So, we can measure edit distance of their draft at any point in time over 6 minutes. And we can see that, like, when people have executable edits, they're faster at diverging. What I want you to notice here is that in the non-executable chat, people are actually slower than in the manual interface. And what that means is if you're kind of continuously in the text editor and then on ChatGPT, you're actually splitting your attention, and that makes you slower. Whereas if you talk to the LLM and it generates edits that you can accept in a click, that actually makes you faster. So that was a pretty neat finding as well. And then there's a lot more in the paper, but one thing is we asked them, okay, you use 3 interfaces in random order, which one did you prefer? And the chat interface and the full InkSync interface got the best overall ranking, and then people don't like manual work, so that was the least liked interface. Okay. Then a wise co-author on this paper told me, but hey, Philippe, if you use LLMs instead of Grammarly, what about hallucinations, right? Like, there's no guarantee that because you're using executable edits, things will be factual. And that was absolutely true. So in the first study, we actually annotated for hallucinations or like factual errors that happen in these documents, and we found that about 28% of the edited documents contain minor factual errors, like saying Paris is an affordable city, and then 15% actually included major factual errors, like saying the zoo, like you should go visit the zoo, that actually is closed. So that's why the second part of the work was focused on how do we mitigate this risk. So in the metadata of the executable edit language, we actually asked the LLM, hey, is this edit introducing new information or not, as a binary flag? And we can use that in the interface to then, the first thing is to warn the user. So we can, let me show you what that looks like. So we can, for instance, imagine I ask in this email writing, can we recommend a restaurant? Then, the LLM comes up with this great suggestion, you should go visit La Pergola, a 3 Michelin star restaurant. So let's see what happens once you enable warn verify. So first thing that I want you to notice is the warning at the top saying, hey, this edit contains new unverified information. So that's warn. And then a third option shows up when this is the case, called verify. When you hit verify, what happens is the LLM is going to generate search queries that you're going to be able to, in one click on to kind of verify pieces of information. So for this one, it generates 2. So for instance, is La Pergola a restaurant in Rome? You can click on it, go to Google. Okay, it seems to have an address in Rome. And okay, does it have 3 Michelin stars? Google does this cool thing where it pulls up a snippet, seems right, and I can like accept the edit and feel good. Okay, but there's kind of a problem that maybe you don't want to do factual verification as you're editing. So we implemented something else in the audit phase, which you know is a read-only interface once you're done editing your email, where you can do the factual verification there. So how this works is you can click this audit button at the bottom left, and because these edits are executable, we know exactly which character was manually written and which character is from an LLM, right? So we can keep track of all of that, and we can help you be like, hey, the stuff in yellow here are edits that the LLM generated that you never verified, right? So you can kind of like verify them, and then if you're happy it's all green, you can kind of send your email, be more at peace. Cool. So this is the Warn, Verify, and Audit framework. We ran a whole second study about this. I'll just say a very brief thing about it, that it worked pretty well at catching errors. So we had participants do exactly the same study, and we introduced more errors in that study. And we found that, like, yeah, both edit and audit time verification are kind of complementary, and you can see if you enable both, people catch like roughly three times as many errors that if you enable neither of them. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, and that's roughly the work. We have a live demo for anybody who wants to do text editing and play around. And we also open source the whole thing, so you should definitely check it out. And I'm happy to talk about extensions and all of that afterwards.
We have about 2 minutes for Q&A. Does anyone have any questions? There's a mic over there. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Teo, and I'm from Northwestern. It's a really impressive talk, and I wonder if any of the participants they mentioned about the ownership of the what they wrote, because basically your system allows you just a few of clicks and then to improve or expand the what it's written. So, but it looks like maybe for participants' perspective, oh, this is not what I write. So, were there any responses from them?
Yeah, we did observe that. I think one thing that I'll say that's in the paper that's great and related to this is this concept of homogenization. So if more people use LLMs, do they end up writing more similar things? So we have a finding in the paper that I should have highlighted that shows that people that use InkSync or the non-executable chat tend to make similar recommendations. So there is a homogenization effect, right? Whereas if they're doing it completely manually, they diverge more. So I think definitely we observe in the data that there is an effect of like, okay, the LLM's kind of making us all a little bit more homogeneous. So I think that's definitely right. I hope that with the concept of executable edits, they have a better feeling about the authorship, because they can, at the granular level, one edit at a time, accept or dismiss. But I think you're right. I think it's kind of a balance, right? And it depends on the domain. If you're doing creative writing, this might not be right because you want to own each word, or vice versa.
But I just wonder, if there are any participants that actually express that this is not right.
I don't think so. Not in particular. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hi, my name is Quentin from the University of Pittsburgh. Great talk. It was super interesting. I'm curious, you had 2 baselines, one with ChatGPT on the side and then one with without any assistance. I'm curious, as researchers continue to work on other writing support tools, what becomes the baseline and how you thought about that when conducting the study?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think the way we set up our baselines was okay, we know people are using ChatGPT on the side at work to get assistance. So we thought of doing it this way. But I think you're right that the baseline kind of rises every 6 months or something like this. So yeah, if I were to redo it, I would definitely select some other best baselines. Yeah.
So if you're doing the same study today, what would be your baseline?
Oh, that's a good question. I think I'd have to look back at the literature review, but there's the great design space at Kai this year that goes over all the writing tools. I would look at that and kind of pick something in there.
Thank you.
All right, so that's all the time we have for questions. Please join me again in thanking the speaker.